He appears without a sound, caked with blood and filth. Looking at him, you would never guess that he was a hero. Let me tell you guys about a nerdy young boy who had hopes of dreams of becoming the #1 hero, until one fateful day it all came crashing down when a crusty dude in his thumb told him,
"Hey, you want to see something cool? Now you die."
This is the story of how this crybaby with a notebook became a true menace with the Riz levels that broke my scouter. Deku as a hero had to learn the dark path, as My Hero Academia is the epitome of good versus evil. It explores the moral dichotomy between what makes someone right or wrong in their ideals. Deku was a quirkless boy who aspired to be a hero just like Shigaraki, as they both idolized the previous users of One For All who created peace in Japan with their strong ideals to protect those in need. So much so in fact that the crime rate dropped by 6% just from All Might's actions alone. The #1 heroes encouraged a whole generation to believe in the system they upheld, until the cracks were exposed through their subjective experiences in their upbringings. Deku's experience led to him being bullied for being quirkless, whilst Shigaraki was abused by his father, both being told to give up on their dreams. They parallel each other in their paths, but diverged at a singular moment. That moment being the hero in their life. This led to the PLA War, where heroes took the biggest L in history. All For One's minions broke out and the heroes' false ideals were exposed. Deku, being the inheritor of One For All, blamed himself for all of their failures, as this power comes with immense responsibility. In fact, it has a destiny, as you must face All For One, the tyrant of the world for the last 150 years, and if you fail, everyone will die. Losing the war tested Deku's ideals and morals like never before, as it made him believe that everyone around him was just fodder and would slow him down. This is in stark contrast to the happy-go-lucky Deku we all knew before, as he was in a similar position. He had no quirk and was weak, yet still wanted to contribute. Just look at the very first chapter when Deku flings himself into the Sludge Village, distracting it long enough for All Might to come in and save the day. If Deku just watched on like a spectator screaming "World Star," then Bakugo would most likely be dead right now. So isolating his friends and sensei just so they wouldn't get hurt due to their weakness is pure hypocrisy. On his crusade to take on the entire burden, Deku was descending down the path of a villain and distancing himself from society. Pretty much every villain's corruption was caused by their isolation and being misunderstood. For example, Shigaraki couldn't even get help from a grandma or any public servants due to his crusty looking ass. This shallow outlook and perception twisted him into believing that hero ideals are fake, as only those with a certain status are rewarded. Likewise, as soon as Deku fitted a similar look in chapter 318, he was immediately labelled as a villain rather than a hero. In Deku's case, he labelled himself as an outcast, with a little bit of help from All For One's manipulation. He used the bait of a bomb trap, putting all the other heroes' lives in danger, which led to the decision to abandon even adult pro heroes. However, alone, Deku isn't achieving anything, as every villain he was tracking down after chapter 317 gave zero information towards defeating All For One. As a result, he was losing sleep, becoming tired and weak, instead giving the villains a perfect chance to attack as they are trying to break down his will so that they can steal One For All. However, Horikoshi knew that Deku cannot be a hypocrite, nor can he understand Shigaraki if he didn't walk the same path as him. If Deku has promised Nana to save her grandson, how would he achieve such a feat without having a similar experience that questions his morality? This is the same pitfall other heroes like All Might or Endeavor fell into, where due to their pride of being the strongest and heroism, they caused harm in the long run. For example, All Might didn't stop fighting villains even though he was sick and tired, where eventually Night Eye gave his prophetic vision that he would die a horrible death. His stubbornness made him grow weaker and weaker over time, to the point where he could barely hold his 100% powers for only minutes. This led to the villains becoming bolder and stronger due to the weakening of the symbol of peace. In the case of Endeavor, it was his selfish desire to be the #1 at all costs by not relying on others and pushing his family away to achieve his goal that caused the birth of one of the most dangerous villains in Dabi. Dabi makes similar mistakes by not sleeping or considering his own deteriorating health in his supposed selfless act of wanting to save others. This hole that Deku falls into is exactly what All For One planned. Ever since his escape from the prison in chapter 296, he was setting up a mental trap for Deku. This chaos led to many heroes outright quitting the business or retiring, causing the foundation of Deku's world, the creed of heroism he worshipped, to be shaken to the core. Then came Muscular. When Deku asks him why he rages, he replies that he wants to live with no regrets, thriving on blood and violence, which means his Talk no Jutsu completely fails.
possible.
This creates a cornerstone in Deku's character, as he must question his own heroism, as he himself may regret his decisions, which is why he told all of his friends about his quirk. Deku claims that, if I had known, maybe things would have worked out differently, but at least I want to learn what makes him tick deep down, alluding to the idea that he won't forgive Shigaraki but try to save Tenko. It's simple. Deku uses code ABD to get 10% off Gamersubs at checkout using the link in our description to save Tenko. It's that easy.
What does that have to do with it?
No. He's got a point.
Okay, but seriously, this reality of regrets is slammed in Deku's face with Lady Nagant's bazookas. She's there to make Deku question the moral dichotomy of the structure society presents. For example, she used to work as an assassin for the Public Safety Agency, which is essentially the CIA of My Hero. Nagant was admired as a celebrity, a hero in the upper echelons like All Might. Because she was labelled as a hero, she perceived her actions to be correct. However, as she kept doing the bidding of the Commission and killing villains left and right, she started to question the morality of this duty. The truth was revealed once the PSA tried to dispose of her as soon as she was of no use to them anymore. She knew too much and became a liability to their image. It all came crashing down when she was trying to shake hands with some kids, and all she could see was the blood of her victims contrasted by the innocence of the children who didn't know the darkness inside of her. And so she said, I am done with this crap, and killed the head of the Commission. In chapter 312, she states that she herself is a victim of the hero society she helped build. Lady Nagant claims that people in this world cannot see anything past the justice that hero society has created. People who follow it blindly could never understand. She believes the system is corrupt and the NPCs around the world do not have critical thinking. They are not questioning their own morality on what the news is feeding them and how their perception of pro-hero society is warped by what information these secret services and governments drip feed them to stay silent and ignorant of their corruption. This justifies Shigaraki's outlook, where he states that fake safety and happiness is all over the world. What makes him so angry is everyone's smiles come at the cost of others having sadness. Deep down, Twice, for example, was a good guy that was led down a villainous path, yet Hawks, the hero society sims for, murdered him. This is where the moral dichotomy is made pretty clear. Twice claims that Hawks and people like him are not really heroes and never were. Despite the so-called perfect hero system, most of these villains we face in the story have felt injustice in their lives with no heroes there to help them. Instead, those very heroes just pushed them further into their pain by assuming the best solution or method these broken people need, rather than giving actual emotional support and care. This emotional void was then later filled by like-minded villains with a broken concept of morality formed by the hero society they live in. For example, Hawks knew that Twice was mentally unstable and easily gullible, so he exploited it for his own goals to complete his mission.
This leads back to Stain and his message that all heroes are fakes except for All Might. My Hero exploring this brings an aspect of reality into this crazy world. Even if no one had quirks, so-called human heroes in our own world commit atrocious acts in the name of protecting their country or belief. But this is why Deku has to learn about the gray area of life so that he can spearhead a new generation and become a new kind of symbol of peace that will reach out to protect everyone equally. However, Deku isn't thinking straight right now. He just wants to protect and defend everyone all on his own. And he finally snaps into a new level when All For One in chapter 316 reveals that he was playing Deku this whole time. He is taunting him by saying it's his turn to fail, just like all the other vestiges. But Deku keeps walking this solo vigilante path, even letting go of the one person who might understand him the most in All Might, claiming that he has already reached his level of power with no drawbacks, making the power blind his eyes to the truth, something which a villain would do. This parallels Shigaraki and All For One, as they believe power is absolute and can make a real change. With it, they can become the demon lord of the world to tyrannically make an ideal world they perceive, rather than going about it the heroic way. The final test of Deku's resolve is Dictator, a villain who turns civilians against him. Will Deku hurt them in order to get information on All For One, further descending into darkness? Nope, bro ran out of mana.
Mission failed. We'll get him next time.
But fear not, as Bakugo and the rest of Class A have shown up to bring our boy back to his senses. Wait, no, he's telling him to get away. Oh, There is no saving this kid. Deku straight up dishes his friends, telling them that they aren't strong enough and will be a burden in his goal of defeating All For One. All of Class A state that he shouldn't be alone. They need to fight this together and share the burden. It's like my Valorant games when they tell me to shut up. Stay in a corner. This is a homage to the idea of All Might inspiring a whole generation rather than one person going plus ultra. Basically, the whole exchange is a metaphor, with Deku trying to walk the path where he takes on everyone's burden. It's kind of like all the burden for one rather than the path of one for all. Like, rather than sharing the burden, you know? To make Deku understand they can stand alongside him, they defeat him and capture it. That proves the point that they're strong enough to defeat someone at his level, so he should allow them to help. Everyone plays their part perfectly, and they all reminisce about how Deku helped all of the students in the past, even Mineta. All these words cannot be resisted by Deku. He shows true anguish in his face as he starts tearing up. He can only think of running away from them, as deep down, he knows they are right, showcased by how he just gave them a letter and dipped. A one-sided way of communication, so they couldn't change his mind. But Deku has accumulated a lot of fatigue from his sleepless solo adventures, and through everyone's efforts, he finally sees the light when Bakugo apologizes to him and refers to him by his actual name, Izuku, instead of calling him Deku. In the end, Deku will do the same thing for Shigaraki, trying to save the boy named Kenko he saw in the Vestige world that was crying as their powers clash. Bakugo tells Deku his actions were not misguided as he did what All Might had done in the past, but ideals can only take you so far. As much as Deku wants the perfect world and society he dreams of, he can only shoulder so much alone. This is not a realistic option and he needs others around him, or he will fall into the same hole Lagann, Endeavor, and All Might fell into. This Talk no Jutsu is super effective, as Deku comes to terms with this mistake, because Bakugo is the perfect person to give him this speech, as he has already walked the path Deku is on. Since childhood, Bakugo went about doing things alone and saw depending on others as a weakness. As he was a child prodigy and others' praises fueled his solo mindset, he even bullied Deku due to his lack of strength. However, Deku started to grow stronger than Bakugo and even went ahead of him by doing the exact opposite, embracing everyone. This made Bakugo question everything, especially how he blamed himself for All Might's retirement. However, everything changed for Bakugo after his fight with Deku. This made him grow, and he started acknowledging the strength and relying on others. His mindset of heroism changed through Deku's inspiration. So now, he's doing the same for Deku, teaching him to share that burden with others as only failure and darkness awaits in isolation. This connects back to Shigaraki, where Shigaraki was also a bright young boy who wanted to be a hero. However, due to society and his isolation, his hatred grew too large, and he can't see the hypocrisy in his actions, and Deku saw all of this in the Vestige world with the crying little boy. Everyone will suffer just like Shigaraki if he keeps walking this path of destruction, creating more orphan children in the world, and if there is not the light of heroism, then what is there to aspire? Remember that Shigaraki always complained that no hero came and saved him when he was looking for anyone and anything to hold on to for his humanity. He blamed All Might for not being the true symbol of peace he hoped for. Shigaraki is destroying hope in the world whilst Deku is trying to uphold it. We saw this perpetuated recently when Deku saved the woman in chapter 310 and told her he will make sure to bring things back to normal after saving her life. My Hero Academia states children are the most important aspect of the world to save, as disregarding them and causing childhood trauma is what causes it to ripple into wider society for someone like All For One to exploit. Even when Overhaul met Deku in chapter 129, it was foreshadowed from the very beginning when they discussed the abuse of Eri and what would a child become if they are misunderstood and treated badly. When we look at Dabi, Shigaraki, Hawks, Eri, Overhaul, we see 3 different lanes of how people become villains. Therefore, Deku has to become the next symbol of peace that All Might was by embodying a message with the smile they proclaim, rather than just being the propaganda and poster boy of moral ideals that are never truly matched, thus giving birth to villains such as Twice, Dabi, and Shigaraki in the first place. Bakugo was part of the problem and even told Deku to commit suicide, telling him he would never become a hero. And they all doubted he could be a helping hand for those in need. But slowly, Deku proved this mentality wrong and has rubbed off on Bakugo, where he has acknowledged him and sees him as his rival. And doesn't this seem kind of similar to how Deku is isolating everyone, telling them that they're worthless, like get the out of his sight because they'll just get hurt, they can't handle the heat? If Deku is able to change the likes of Bakugo through actions backing his words, he would be able to become the symbol that All Might once was, therefore inspiring children just like he was inspired by his sensei as a kid. To back this up with evidence, Deku even helped change Kota, who's of the next generation. During the forest training arc, we see Kota as a kid who doesn't like heroes because he thought being a hero was pointless since his parents were heroes who got killed by a villain, leaving their child all alone. He didn't understand why his parents would choose to be a hero over taking care of Kota. This is similar to how Nana Shimura's son and Shigaraki's father saw heroes, as Nana died being a hero and wasn't there for him as his mother. This ultimately led to Shigaraki becoming the worst villain. However, during the training camp, Kota met Deku, who saved him from harm's way against Muscular. Deku, in his selfless act, destroyed his arms just so Kota could flee and be saved. When Kota witnessed Deku's triumph over Muscular, he understood what it meant to be a hero and to be called my hero. Kota sees Deku as the new symbol of peace. We saw this influence Deku had on Kota in chapter 184, where he gave Deku a letter thanking him, and he was also wearing red shoes similar to what Deku wears in his pro hero costume. Therefore, Deku will embody a message greater than the smile itself. He will create reform in society that will allow for circumstances the anti-heroes, villains, and he himself face to occur much less.